Alright folks, in this video I'm going to go over the emulator setup. I know I have some videos posted that are that go over the emulator, but they're not mine, and there's two different ones. So I want to do one that is very specific to what we're going to be doing if we need to go virtual in class. So I'm going to run through this with you. So the first thing I want you to do is go to Studio 5000 Logix Emulate. Now I've got my shortcut on the desktop. If you don't have it there, you can go down to Rockwell Software, and it should be in list. I've not looked for it very often because I made myself a shortcut, right? I mean, that's why we do that. All right, there it is. Studio 5000 Logix Emulate. So you'd go there and click on that. And I'm just going to do it from my shortcut that I have. We'll let that load. So basically this process is, again, if we have to go virtual for some reason, and you need to be able to test your programming, this is the way that you would do that. So basically you're going to use your computer as a virtual PLC, and it's going to simulate what a processor is going to do. So you don't actually have to be in class to do the stuff, but the I/O stuff changes, but you'll be able to simulate everything just as though you were in class. Okay, so the first thing is that it's open. You're going to see this RSLinx here is grayed out, and then you got this FT-Linx, or you may have, or may even say RSLinx here as well, and all that there is RSLinx Enterprise. This right here is actually going to be your RSLinx Classic right here. So once we get this open to at least this, you should see slot 0 should be your RSLinx, and then you should see slot 1. It may say RSLinx. I think mine is factory top links in this version that I've got, but it doesn't matter either way. It should look very similar to this, and if you see this, that's fine. You can hit the up arrow and collapse that, and this right here is plenty enough for us to see here. We won't use this. All we'll be doing is putting a controller in slot 2, input card in slot 3, and an output card in slot 4, just so we can simulate inputs and outputs as well. So now I guess the next thing we should do is let's go ahead and open up our RSLinx, which I think we should all be familiar with. And if you noticed that the RSLinx over here that was grayed out in slot 0 is now not grayed out. So this should tell you that this RSLinx software is going to be using this slot 0 in order to get to a controller that we're going to configure later. So remember, RSLinx is your communication software. Okay, I'll let this open. I want to get this up here to where you can see it. Okay, so I want to go ahead and you can see I have no drivers configured. So I want to go to configure drivers. I'm going to hit the drop down for available drivers. And we're going to go to the one that says virtual backplane. Virtual backplane. So go ahead and select that. Hit add new. We're going to keep the default name. So select OK. Now here is where we're going to, what slot are we going to have our RSLinx in? As you can see right now, we're in slot 0. So right there, we want it to be slot 0. So that's fine. So we're going to select OK. Now our virtual backplane driver is running. As you can see, it popped up in the background. If you have this window moved out of the way, it should pop up in the background here in your list. Now right now it's running, but we're not browsing. So let's go ahead and close this. And let's go ahead and hit the plus sign. Okay, so now we are browsing. Okay, so now the next thing I want you to do is we're going to go to slot 2 right here. And there's two things we can do here. It's either we can right click and hit create, or just click. See how this red outline? Wherever you click, the red outline is where you're going to create the module. So you can either right click on it or go up to slot and hit create module. Either way is fine. It's going to do the same exact thing. So we're going to create. It may take a moment for it to come up. Okay, and here we want to put the controller in. So it says module type, so it's emulator controller or input output simulator. So again, this is going to be the controller, so you only got two options, and we want to go with the controller. We want it to be in slot 2, so all we want to do is say OK. Here we want to make sure the version that we have. This is very important. So what I want to do, just to make sure that you know what version of software you're using, go to Studio 5000. And what this is going to do is that it's going to, I'm going to open up a project I've had previously made. So once you open up your software, whether or not you try to create a new project or open up an old project or whatever, it will tell you the version of software that you're using. And I want to show you how to validate this, because this is very important. If it ain't correct, it will not work. And I believe most everyone in class, I think, is using a 30. There might be one laptop that has a 31 running. So that's the reason why I want to make sure that you know how to check this so that you don't have a problem. Because it will not work if you select the wrong version. We'll wait for this right here to come up. Okay, it's about up. I gotta wait for it to populate. Okay, so now we've got this right here up. Now if you go to the help, go to About Logix Designer, you're going to see right here it says version 30. So this is what you want to see. If it's 31, 32, 29, whatever, this is what you want to see. Whatever this version is what this version has to be. So just make sure, okay? So I want to close this out. I'm going to close Studio 5000 out. I'm going to create a new file later. So I'm going to go to version 30. Everything else is going to be default, so you don't have to worry about changing anything else on this page. You don't have to worry about changing anything on this page, so select Finish. Okay, so now you should have a controller in there. Don't worry about the battery light. If you have a battery light that's flashing or an OK light that's flashing or anything at this point. But you should see something similar to this. Okay. Now what we want to do is, let me open up my links. Now you can see, because I'm still browsing, now you can see that in slot 2, okay, I can see this controller there. So we don't have a program in it or nothing, so it's not running or anything, but I can actually see it through the backplane. So we can see slot 0, which is this 00 here, going through our computer using RSLinx as the pathway, and 02 is slot 2 right here. Okay, so I just want you to see how, as we add things, how it should start populating in RSLinx. Okay, so let's just say if we was to go ahead and put in an input card. So we'll do a create. Remember, just right click or go up here to slot and hit create module. So this is going to be slot 3. We're going to go to a input output simulator. We're going to hit OK. We're going to call it slot 3. And if you wanted to name it, you can put input, inputs, whatever you want. This is going to be what's going to scroll across the display on that slot. So if we hit finish, now you should see it's saying inputs across the little marquee, and that's all that was saying. So you don't have to do that. But if you wanted to make sure you know what slot your inputs or outputs is, there's different ways. You can right click and go to properties. So now what we're going to do is go to slot 4. As you can see, slot 3 now came up in our. So as we add things, you should see it populate in RSLinx as long as you're browsing. We're going to go to input output module, slot 4. Okay. We're going to leave that slot 4. And we're going to put outputs. And you can put whatever you want, just as long as you know, but I mean, you could even leave it blank if you want. Makes no difference. Okay, so now we should see that populate as well. You may have to give it just a little bit of time, but it should populate in RSLinx as long as you're browsing. Okay, so there we go. So now our emulator has been set up. Our RSLinx, all we needed was the driver, and we're browsing, so that means that we're actually able to physically see everything our emulator has in it. So now let's go ahead and I'm going to minimize my RSLinx and I'm going to open Studio 5000. I'm going to create a new project. And here is where you have to make sure that you select the right controller. Because over here in Emulate, in the emulator, we selected an emulator controller. So here you have to select, so you have to hit that little arrow to expand this, and there's only one emulate controller in there. So we can't use what we've been using in class. If you're using it out there, it will not work. So you have to make sure that you select this Studio 5000, select the little arrow, it'll drop down to expand, and select this Emulate 5570 controller. Once you do that, then you're going to do what you normally do in class. I want to name mine something different, but you normally use your initials, underscore, and the date, but use whatever naming convention I give you for the lessons. Then we're going to select next. Again, just verify if you have multiple versions of software, just make sure that this is whatever you set this for. That just needs to be correct. Also, whatever slot that you put this in, because we didn't have to put it in slot 2, we could have put it in slot 8 or whatever. Just make sure this slot number matches where you actually have the emulator controller in this chassis. Okay, so just make sure of this, and once you do, just like in our classes, when we're in class, select finish. Now what it's going to do is it's going to populate, and so we'll give that a few minutes to run. As you know, sometimes it just takes a little time for it to open. Okay, it's about done populating. Over here so I want to be able to see this emulate, so you can see what happens as we add the I/O into this project. Because right now we have the emulator controller, so we've already selected the controller in Studio 5000 that we have. But now we have to add this input and output module into this project for this to actually function. And then we're going to download just an empty project in there, just so we can see that we're online, and we should have a run light and our IO light should be good. Okay, so right here you can see if it hasn't expanded it out automatically, hit the plus signs, keep expanding, then you should see a number 2 in brackets, which means slot 2, which is this slot here. So right there, here is your emulator controller, and here is your emulator controller in your chassis. So now what we got to do is we have to, here's slot 3 and slot 4. You don't see those under here. So we actually have to add those manually. They will not automatically detect those. So what we have to do is we have to right click on the backplane and select new module. Okay, then I'm going to deselect. So this right here, this check mark right here will uncheck everything. Then I want to scroll down to other and check that one, and then select on this module, the 1756 module. So it says generic. So what it's going to do is be able to let you set it up so it'll take the place of these. Okay, so once you do that there, you can either double click on this or select it and hit create. Either way will work. Okay, now I'm just going to call it, you can call it anything you want, but I'm just going to call this inputs. You have to select what slot it's going to be in, which is slot 3 is where the inputs are going to be. And you have to change these numbers. So this should be a 1, that should be a 2, and all I'm doing is hitting tab, and then tab again, 2, tab again, 1, tab again, 16. Okay, so make sure you just give it a name. I don't care what you call it, but I'm calling it inputs for this tutorial, so it matches up with slot 3. I mean, you could even say slot 3 inputs if you wanted. So, or you can put slot 3. It makes no difference as long as you give it a name. You have to give it a name. You got to make sure what slot that you're wanting to configure, and then you want to make sure these numbers match. Should be a 1, 2, 2, 1, and 16. So once you have that, you want to select OK. Now you're going to have a properties menu come up. Okay, so what we want to see here, you need to change this where it says RPI, this requested packet interval. You need to have this set to at least 50. At least 50. Okay, and you can apply that. And if you look, here's if you must have made a mistake, you can go back here in the General tab. Once this opens up, you can change stuff here. Just make sure this is on 50. These items here, you don't have to do anything and anything else under any other tab other than the Connections tab, unless you made a mistake on the General tab. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit OK. Now you're going to see that underneath the backplane in this IO configuration, now you have slot 2, which is in brackets, and slot 3, which is in brackets. So now you have your input. Okay, notice it didn't change anything over here. The IO is still, light is not on anywhere, and it's because this, just because we've made this here, now we'd have to actually download this to the controller before it would take effect. Okay, but we need one more card, so we need this slot 4. So we're going to right click on the backplane, hit new module. We're going to deselect the check mark, scroll down to other, and then we're going to select and hit create. I'm going to type in outputs. I'm going to select slot 4. I'm going to go 1, tab 2, tab 2, tab 1, tab 16. Okay. Then we're going to select OK. Then we want to go ahead and change that to 50 milliseconds. Click apply and OK. So now we have slot 2, slot 3, and slot 4. And slot 2, slot 3, slot 4. Everything appears to be lined up. So now what we want to do is we want to download to this controller. Okay, we've already got our RSLinx set up. We can already communicate with the controller. So now what we want to do is go to Communications, Who Active. We want to expand our virtual backplane driver. We want to find our emulator controller. And once we do, then we want to select it, and then we want to click download. And this is going to be an empty program, and so that's fine. Okay, so we want to download. Okay, it's finishing up. You see the IO light starting to blink. The IO light over here is solid green. Wait for it to get finished. And it should come into remote program. So now the only thing we should have to do is click on that, go down to run mode, and it's going to ask us if we want to make sure. Yes. So now we should be in run mode. The IO light should be solid green. The OK light should be solid green. The IO and the OK lights on both input and output modules should be green as well. Okay, so that's about all there is to, and if you see, we go back into remote program, the IO lights on the input and output module start blinking. Go back to run mode. Should be back up. Now again, I just downloaded an empty program, but if you was to have went in and actually clicked on the main routine, you would have got this. You would need to delete this rung out before you downloaded. I didn't open this main routine up, so it didn't automatically put a default rung in, and as you can see, it's red. So if you had opened this up, you would have needed to delete this like this, then do the download if you'd went to your main routine and opened it up, because you cannot delete a program that has a rung that's not got anything in it. Okay, so if you have any questions on this or any other topics, just let me know. But this will wrap it up for this tutorial on setting up the emulator. All right, thanks.